To another how-to webinar from the TPS Southern region. And today's episode is going to be about how to cite a primary source when you use it in a bibliography or in a caption. Uh, Either a caption for, under a picture in something that you're making, or even a museum panel. So this is for everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and take you to the image that we are going to be looking at today and citing. Now, this is an image of two people making a quilt from surplus commodity cotton in Greensboro, Greene County, Georgia. And we found this the other day, and we're going to be using it for some of our TPS Southern Region promotional materials because we all kind of fell in love with it. Just the way that it's arranged and the story that it tells. I'll show you I'll give you a little bit of a close-up view. There we go. This was taken in 1941 by Jack Delano, one of the Farm Security Administration photographers, as part of this New Deal program. And he took a bunch of pictures from the Greene County Fair. And so if you look at this in sequence, you'll see other pictures of people making quilts and doing other things at the fair. And so it really kind of captures small town, rural Southern life at this point in time. So how do we cite it? Well, let's start off with a traditional bibliographic citation, such that if you're going to be doing a research paper or writing a journal article, or we use these in our primary source sets, what are all the components that you have to include? I have created, by the way, a little set of Google slides so that I can type these in real time and you can watch kind of how I put this together. Now, the Library of Congress has made this kind of easy by giving you everything that you need to do this. But it's a little confusing because it gives you a lot of stuff. So we're going to kind of go through that process. Here's the bibliographic page. It has all of the details that you need to include in a bibliographic citation. But of course, not all of them are going to be included. So which ones do you go to and use? Scrolling down, you can see they actually have a section that says cite this item. So they've already kind of done it for you. But they warn you that these are generated automatically and may not be complete or accurate. So let's keep that in mind. I am a Chicago style person, and so that's the one that I'm going to be using today. I'm going to copy and paste that. And how do you know if it is indeed accurate? Well, we're going to go to the actual citation guidelines, which you can find from the teachers page. So from the Library of Congress homepage, click on the teachers button, go to getting started with primary sources, and then along the left-hand side, you'll see citing primary sources. Now they only have two styles here, but luckily Chicago is one of them. Now you have a lot of different formats that produce different kinds of bibliographic citations. We're going to click on photographs because that's the source that we have. You can see they list the different structural components that go into this, and then they have examples so you can see how it's actually put together. Now, not every single primary source is going to have every single bit, every single element that goes into this citation. But you can see we start off with photographer's name, last name first, including their role as in photographer. And that is indeed what this computer-generated one has. So we're going to copy that. Delano Jack, photographer, period. It looks like the title comes next. And indeed, that is what comes next. But if it's a single photograph, you put it in quotation marks, which this one did not. So you can see already there's a bit of an inaccuracy. So making a quilt from surplus commodity cotton in Greensboro, Greene County, Georgia, end quotes. So the next thing they have is some confusing Greene County, Georgia, United States, Greensboro, comma 1941. Now that does sound machine generated to me. So what is it supposed to be? Well, the next thing is supposed to be the format, which in this case is a photograph. They don't have it in quite the right order, so we're going to pop that in. And next, if there's a publisher city and company and copyright date. Now that's for commercially produced photographs. The FSA photographs are not commercially produced. Of course, they're government produced. But we do have a city and a state and a date. And since we have that information, then I am going to use it. So I'll write Greensboro, Georgia, 1941. And so is the URL next? No, actually, we need the source that it comes from at the Library of Congress. So we need to write from the Library of Congress, and then we need to write the collection name. And the collection in this case is the Farm Security Administration Office of War Information Black and White Negatives. So it's kind of a mouthful, but let's write it in. Colon, and then in italics, Farm Security Administration Office of War Information, Black and White Negatives. All right, and so does our URL come next? Well, next comes the medium where there's a software requirement needed to access source. I'm going to skip that part. Usually that's not included for these basic type of citations. But then indeed the URL plus the access date. So the URL, if you are from the main bibliographic page, it is up here in the bar. But be careful because if you have already kind of clicked on the image to make it larger, it changes the URL. So you want to make sure you go back to about this item and the main bibliographic page. So I'm going to paste that in and then write my access date. Accessed May 30th, 2025. And there I have my thorough bibliographic citation, slightly different from what they fed me. So that's why it's always good to double check using the guide at the teacher's page. But let's say you want to just write a caption. Do you have to include all this stuff in a caption? No. Um, in fact, you don't even have to use the title of the photograph that they gave you. You can make your own title. So let's say I want to emphasize some other kind of aspect or something. You can do that here. Or you can just write something like Greene County residents sewing quilt at County Fair in 1941. And then you need to cite the source where the image came from. So how do you do that in a picture caption? All right, well, it's not under cite this item because that was the bibliographic citation, but we're going to look under rights and access. Now, copyright is a very large and somewhat confusing issue when dealing with Library of Congress sources, and we are not getting into that in today's webinar. But we are going to sift through some of that stuff to find some additional citation information. So you can see that for information about reproducing, publishing, and citing material from this collection, they give you a link to what is a research guide. Now, we love the Library of Congress research guides, and they have one specifically for prints and photographs, copyright, rights, and restriction information. Now, within this research guide, you can use this drop-down menu to search for different collections, but we are working within the FSA OWI, so we're already where we need to be. So there's some access information, blah, 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 but then you can see credit line down here. And this is mostly if you are publishing something and getting it out there in a more formal setting. But it never hurts to be accurate when you can be. So you can see that it has Library of Congress, Prints and Photographs Division, FSA OWI collection, and then a reproduction number. Now, I will show you where you can find that in just a sec, but let's go ahead and pop in the rest of that here. So Library of Congress, Prints and Photographs Division, FSAOWI collection, comma. And all right then, so how do we find the reproduction number? Well, you may have noticed it starts with usually an LC and a hyphen. And sure enough, under reproduction number, you see an LC hyphen right here. You also see another reproduction number. That's actually pretty common for this collection as well as some others. So I just use the first one that says LC at the beginning of it and hope for the best. So I am going to pop it in, but of course, when I do that, it throws off my formatting. So I'm going to recopy it. USF 33. 021232 hyphen M2, period. So there's my caption. But let's say you want to take up even less space, which is usually an issue when you're doing a museum panel or a pop-up banner or some sort of poster that might be, you might be transporting from a library to a courthouse somewhere. Those are wonderful resources, but they don't have a lot of space. You have to cram a lot of information onto them. How can we kind of, you know, condense that down to the absolute essentials? Well, we have done this at the Heritage Center of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, and I'm going to show you a couple examples of how we've done it there. So I'm going to just go into my slideshow. Here's an example of a panel from our Civil War Reconstruction exhibit. It's an image from the Freedmen's Bureau, and I'm going to blow up the captions so you can see that we created our own caption here. And then at the end, in a smaller font that's italicized, just wrote courtesy of the Library of Congress, Prints and Photographs Division. Same thing with our New Deal exhibit. We wrote our own caption and then put courtesy of Library of Congress, Prints and Photographs Division there in smaller font at the end. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Greene County residents sewing quilt at county fair in 1941 or whatever else you want to write. Courtesy of Library of Congress, Prints and Photographs Division. And there you have it. So you can see that most of the information that you're going to need is right there available from the library's, the bibliographic page for the image itself. But there's also this research guide. But the ultimate guide, of course, is to look at the teacher's page and see what you have there. So I hope that was helpful for you. And until next time, thank you and keep using those sources.